Barakatuh. All right. Bismillah, ahlan wa sahlan wa bienvenidos a todos. All right, people. So, I'm just going to bring this up. All right, I can see you all. I've clicked all the buttons I could possibly click, so God knows if this is streaming or not. Tawakkulan ala Allah. So, people, ahlan wa sahlan, bienvenidos a todos. I do apologize for the technical delays as always, but that's an occupational hazard. You guys have to kind of just roll with it. So, firstly, let me just check some of the names who we've got here. We've got Murabitin. All right. We've got Ibn Firnas. You're doing it. Kursa. How do you say that? Kurshad or Kurchad?
It's actually Kürşat. It's a Turkish name.
Kurshad. All right.
Yeah.
Leopard.
German U, like U, but doesn't matter.
Oh, we'll get to that. So, Leopard, you're doing it. We've got Doofus. No camera there. We can't see Doofus yet. Lee, Imran Khan, Britannian. All right. Imi. All right. Welcome. Paragon. Sauce. Oyster. And some of the cameras coming on and off. So, since this is the first time we are streaming it, I'll put on a question. Right, okay, we're live. I take it, and let us just check if these guys. I know on Facebook they can definitely see us. So, all right, so people. Shukran for taking the time out. We're going to be taking a look at Money, Yuval Harari. Before we begin, I just wanted to, what do you guys think about the book overall? I want to go through some of the themes and then open it up a bit, but what do you guys think about this book choice?
I think it was a very interesting choice because there's many similarities between money and religion, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I mean, what why do you feel that there's many similarities?
Because money could be seen as a type of God. You know, in God we trust, in money we trust. That's what I suppose I took from the book.
Now that is very powerful. That's something I want to take a little look at, and that is imaginative realities, because belief systems are part of the psychosocial realm. They exist within us. They don't exist as, like that's not, you're not going to find religion like that or money in that sense, even though money is paper and so on, but the idea of it is within the mind. That's fascinating. I mean, was it a difficult read? Did anybody feel it was a difficult read?
No, it wasn't a difficult read. It was a nice, easy read, actually.
Yeah.
For me, it was very...
But you have to think about it.
Yeah. What somebody saying it was a bit difficult for them? No? Okay.
Yeah. The vocabulary wasn't that hard, but some of the ideas were very new to me. Like, I've never heard of them in my life.
If you guys can, switch on your cameras so we can see who's speaking, because it doesn't show up so well on my screen who's speaking, and I'm trying to just grasp. So if you can, switch them on. Guys, Fahim, Source, Paragon.
A quick question. I haven't read Money, but I have read Sapiens, and I believe there is a chapter on money in that book. I wasn't aware that there was a book like up until now. So yeah, just a quick question.
So it is very much taken and extrapolated from Sapiens, but then he builds on it. So there's obviously more in this than just the chapter of money in Sapiens, although the fundamental ideas are still there. That's the same kind of building blocks he's building that on. So, okay. All right, guys. Is that okay, guys? Are you in a bit of a stable position to switch on your cameras? Let's bring it on, people. All right, that's a lot better. So we can actually see some of the some of the luminary faces. Britain on. No. All right, that's better. I think they're coming up. Yep. Okay. Awesome. All right, Lee. If you're about, Rami, if you're there. I think they've gone on a early tea break now.
I'm making my chai right now, so can't really go on camera yet.
Okay. Rest of you guys, are you oyster? Nope. Oyster's gone off on a break. Right. See, all this while I do my technical stuff. Cool. So, guys, I found this. I found it incredibly interesting as a read. It was one thing about the author. I do love his style of writing. I love that from *Sapiens*. To be fair, it's something I found it quite gripping. His choice of vocabulary is something very smooth. So it's sophisticated yet smooth. He's not trying to. He doesn't come across as though he's trying to forge a like a sophistication, but it is sophisticated. So I was gripped the first time with his book *Sapiens*. So same thing here. And there's a lot of topics, and I thought just highlighting some of them, going through them, about just imaginative realities, the concept, and just feeding through from that into the historical development of money, and how that's been interesting, because he touches up on morality, and that's this whole kind of ethics surrounding economics, whether he's going to speak about liberalism, what that could offer, and he's going to speak about should just historically how you've seen mercantile companies and the whole colonial kind of tragedies. And it's quite surprising for me. I didn't know some of the details of how these companies developed and became these kind of superpowers in and of themselves. And then this whole thing about artificial intelligence, he goes into that to unpack it. That really, because I suppose the economy is about efficiency. And if it's about efficiency, it's not about you. It's not about, it's about what you can bring to the table. It's not people don't pay you for your hour. They pay you for the value you bring in that hour. And if it's about value, what if an algorithm can do it better than you? And then I felt he kind of, in the end, he dedicates his section going into this kind of apocalyptic kind of scenario of, oh my God, AI may take over the world. And it got a bit kind of, I don't know, but for me, it got a bit doom and gloom at the ending. And I was a bit kind of, I didn't really like the way, personally, he kind of brought it to an end. Unlike his book *Sapiens*, which he brings to an end on a high note, of humans may become this, they've gone from Homo erectus, Homo augusta, Homo, you've got Heidelbergensis and Homo sapien, the wise, to Homo deus, the divine-like human, which is yet to come. And here he just ends it on, well, humans will just be a redundant, useless class. So let's open that up a bit. So looking at imaginative realities, we'll kind of guide through it and then highlight things that kind of stuck out for you guys, stood out, and that you found really interesting, or you found maybe a bit disturbing. So who'd want to take a shot at that first? Who we got? Yeah, Scorp, what about you? Oh, we can't hear you. I can't hear you. Okay, I can't. Can anybody else hear? Scope, are you sure it's not on mute? No,
Yeah, I don't hear anything.
I don't hear anything. Check that your audio on the
Check your
microphone.
input.
Yeah, just check your microphone that it's not on mute or that you've got the right one connected. Okay, till then, Morabitin, what about you? Would you like to take a stab at it? How do you feel about?
Unfortunately, I didn't read the book. I read the beginning of the book. But,
yeah, well, this is the beginning of the Imaginative Realities. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It was interesting on page 11. It said, in other words, money isn't a material reality; it is a psychological construct. Mm-hmm. I think that was interesting.
He unpacks that right through the whole kind of the first, I don't know, maybe fifth of the book or something. He's kind of like going into this whole psychosocial construct of money. I mean, what are your thoughts about all of this? Is there, share with us, talk to us.
My thoughts.
Yeah. That's.
I mean, I think a quote that stuck a lot. I think was the quote that was put out that because everybody, what was it? It's at the back of the book about everyone always wants money because everyone else also wants money, which means you can exchange money for whatever you want. I feel like it's kind of, if I have understood it correctly, it's kind of hopeful in a way, because if it means that you can you can change the reality of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. The value of it is in it because everyone else wants it.
Do you see that as a plus or a negative?
I see it as a plus because it means that you're not necessarily susceptible to chasing the same thing. I mean, you can change it for. It doesn't have to be like some type of a god. I mean, I guess.
Okay.
You can exchange it for something else.
What about rest of you? What do you guys feel about that? I mean, because this is the whole book is themed on. It's centered on money. This entity. Is this in and of itself a good thing or a bad thing? It's been deemed the root of all evil, according to some people.
Well, I think in *Sapiens* he talks about the fact that people do not trust people, but they do trust the money that those people hold, right? So it's not. Yeah, well, that's interesting because it kind of. I don't know whether it contradicts the idea, the religious idea of trusting the community and helping each other.
No. This isn't about. This is devoid of. You don't need to feel bound by religious talk.
Exactly, right? So, in one way, it kind of maybe facilitates helping the community because you don't have to trust the individual. As long as they put their money forth, you can do with that money whatever you want, and you can help the community. And so, it's an interesting concept, but. If you kind of delve into that, it really goes deep, right? Because I think the premise that capitalism is built on is, as long as everyone has what they need, I'm willing to help the state, or I'm willing to pay taxes, basically, right? As long as I'm good, I'm willing to pay taxes, right? So it's basically helping yourself by helping others, basically by paying. So it's kind of this weird dynamic, and I think money allows for that, right?
I personally, I feel it's. This is why I didn't want to I wanted some of your thoughts before I kind of shared some of mine on it. What about Leopard? What? Sorry, I didn't catch Leopard. What should we be referring to you as apart from Leopard?
My name is.
Say that again.
It's not leopard, it's leopard, firstly.
Oh,
Leopard.
That's my
Like, okay.
that's what I was thinking. It's a name, you see, because I was like, this is my kind of cross
Actually, the
eyes at
place
this
where I
hour.
stay,
This is my cross eyes at this hour of the day
Leopard.
as I'm turning
No,
into
my
a
name
vampire.
is
Yep.
no, my name is Zakira, so you can call me
Sakura.
Zakira.
Sakura. So Sakura,
Yes.
what about your thoughts on this being the central theme, money? I mean, what? Because it's such a powerful theme. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's something indispensable. It's
Yeah.
something inevitable. It's deemed the root of all evil, yet it's deemed the ultimate pursuit of, of the human caprice. So people will die over money, literally. I mean, they will. So, what are your thoughts on it? Do you see it as a negative, positive?
I suppose that when you say people will die over money,
They
people will
will.
also live because of money, you know?
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. And in the question that you pose, like, is it a human universal? It is, you know, and it is because of money
Yeah.
that we are able to grow, to exchange, to live, to. So this is just, it is the reality of life, and we wouldn't actually be able to function further if we didn't have this unit of measure. It is a universal unit of measure for us to interact, regardless of where you are, I am, across time. You know, it is one of those universal truths. I don't see
Absolutely.
it as something negative.
Yeah. I mean, I personally don't either, but I can see how it's interesting. If you ask people, many people may feel money is, like they say, it's the root of all evil. So they'll say it is a negative. I don't personally see it like that either. I feel,
Money's
um,
great. Come on, whoever's saying that is lying. Money's
yeah.
great.
You see, more than just being, when you say money is great, do you mean great for its utility, or do you mean something more than that?
I mean that I think a lot of people go through a lot of stress because of money, you know, in terms of their lifestyle, and there's poverty, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of emotional and mental stress because of money. And when we have money and we can grow money and we can, I don't want to use the word funnel because then that makes it sound shady, but like, you know,
Yeah,
dilute
sure.
money.
Of course.
I think it does strengthen the community.
Of course.
It does that. It
So
does that as a function.
from a utility perspective, what about you, Rami? What do you think about that? What would you?
So, you know that line you guys, or that the author talked about, that it's an imaginative reality. I think that's the word, right?
Yeah, it's an imaginative reality.
So, like, all of that is true. It's true. It's an imaginative reality, but it's like an over rationalization. And what I mean by that is none of us think of it that way. So, it's, for example, language is sounds you make with your mouth, or shapes and patterns you put on paper that mean something, but we don't think of it that way. Yes, it is an imaginative reality. That is all true, but just because that's true doesn't, I mean, it's profound when you think about it, but from a pragmatic point of view, okay, yeah, it's true, but I just feel like it's profound, but doesn't really make a difference that it is. What's interesting though is the way he breaks it down. Money, at least the way that we're using it, it's inevitability, right? If to do the things that money does, it's inevitable. It's like an inevitable path, from barter to whatever, trading those shells. I believe he used the example, being able to create industry. Money was an inevitability. So whether it's good or bad, saying it's one or the other is naive. Anything that can produce tremendous good generally has the potential of the opposite. So money, for all the good that it produces, just like the internet, I believe that, yeah, it has a propensity for evil. And that's just the reality. And as long as you have, and I think this is where I guess government, gets involved, as long as you have some checks and balances and a moral compass in your society, that should try its best to curb that evil that can be laid out. So that's how I see it.
I mean, I find it incredible. You see, this is why I was asking Zakira that when you're saying it's amazing, I agree that I feel money is absolutely amazing, but I mean it greater than just utility. This is why I said, did you just mean from the angle of utility, that you could use it to buy stuff and you could do stuff with money? It's functionary kind of purpose. You see, to me, money is one of the hallmarks of human greatness, that they could come up with a construct that became a shared belief system, and through it you can, despite rivalries, despite bitter enmity, you can still come to an agreement and cover what they have. The example he gives, that, you know, when the Crusaders, the Inquisition, and when they can't stand the Muslims, from the Moors from North Africa, but yet they're happy to receive their money that says La ilaha illallah on it. And the Muslims who hate he mentions the Iberian, the Andalusi kind of Christians, Ferdinand and Isabella, but yet they're happy to receive the minted coin with the cross and say, the Mother of God on it and things like this, because money is a construct. You see, it shows. You see, that's just the petty quabbles. Put that aside. But the idea of what we've created, it's just so far-reaching. Like, to appreciate it, I guess a person would have to be an alien to come here and see what humans have done. Like, what have they actually created? They've created a system, and they all believe in it. It doesn't matter what they believe in this. And it doesn't even exist. And yet it is everything. And it can...
That's the thing, Mufti. Maybe I would like to ask you a question on that. Like, most people don't realize that it's a story, right? It's a huge narrative that we kind of live in, but we don't know that it's a story.
That immersed in the matrix of it that you can't tell. Yeah.
So, but what happens when all people realize that, like, everyone in society actually realizes that it's a big story and just made up? Like, what would happen in your
It doesn't
opinion?
matter.
It doesn't matter.
I think even if we know it, we are too tethered to the matrix. We're not, you see, because of its function and its utility, and we will still always be a part of the myth. Even if we know the myth is just a myth. You see, now I know this is a myth. It doesn't stop me still wanting to pursue entrepreneurial and make a lot of money, because I know money will still get me stuff. So it doesn't. So the myth, even the fact that we know it's a myth, it's still, that's the power of. And if you think about it, that's the power of the human will and imagination combined, that they could come up with this. I honestly, I find it like just totally mesmerizing what humans have pulled off with money, because and the fact that it has no existence, and now it's literally come to that. Because at least, okay, first it began with, certain shellfish and certain things, and then it kind of barter system, and then, minerals, gold and silver, and then paper, but now nothing, just digits. And now crypto, which is going totally, underground. And so you can make money now out of just nothing. Like, I just type in digits and there it is. That's amazing.
But again, it's an inevitability. At least it just seems like it's inevitable to do what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Like across the world, you needed this to exist.
Yeah.
So it just and it works everywhere.
Many things are imaginary.
Yeah.
For example, meridians, longitude, latitude. Many things are imaginary, but they actually have some tangible reality behind them.
Exactly.
It might be something which doesn't exist, but it is the value. It's basically value of things, value of productivity, value of work done. It's value.
Fundamentally, there's an arbitrary nature to it, though.
Yeah, it's still arbitrary, just like anything, like GMT, like whatever, meridian, latitude, longitude. So many things are arbitrary, but they are backed by something very, very tangible.
Yeah.
I think where the part of the evil that you could talk about is it's not the perfect calculator for value. So how do you value a guy turning wrenches in the auto shop, versus the owner? So this is when you get into capital, this is when you get into economics, right? How much more valuable is that guy turning wrenches, in the shop versus the owner who's sitting at the office? This is where money, people say the evil comes from. So that's just it's just not the perfect, so that's one example.
Yeah, no,
I think it actually serves like the hierarchy we have in society, right? That the hierarchy that's already present, that we all accept that some people are from a higher social class or have better jobs or whatever. I think money facilitates that kind of, right? We give money to people who
perpetuates the class system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's interesting, I suppose, because that question that he does tackle that as well, as he said, Rami, that the CEO who's sitting there and you got the hard workers on the ground, and what he's making the CEO in seconds and minutes, they don't make in, it doesn't even, they're nothing compared to what yet they're putting in all the hard work. And
it's not perfect. Yeah.
I mean, I do find it, I find it mesmerizing in the fact that it really just, it's like you said, it's a necessary myth, but it's a myth we are all so comfortable with.
Well, I also look at it as some kind of reward that society gives you for achieving something in that society, right? For example, a CEO or a founder of a big company that, let's say Discord, for example, it now allows us to have this chat, right? So we kind of reward that guy by giving him a lot of money because he thought up of an idea that became Discord. So the question is, of course, like, does he deserve that much money, right? Maybe that's not the imperfect aspect that you're talking about. So I see it as a reward system. Like money is like works as a reward for people in society.
Yeah. I mean, there's the question, does anybody deserve to be a billionaire? Have you, I don't know if you've come across those kind of presentations where they show you, like, they'll be like, okay, this is the average person's annual wage, this is this person, this is this person, this is $1 million. And then when it goes to billions, and it will show like certain people like Jeff Bezos or certain people's wealth, and the screen literally keeps moving for like 3 minutes. And halfway it stops and it says, haha, only joking, we're not even halfway. And it says, it does raise the question, wow, with that much money, doesn't that just render a person, because I don't know what the motivational factors will then be, because wouldn't everything just dissolve? Because if you've got literally billions, I mean, wouldn't the concept of money just almost dissolve?
Well, that's a question that's not answered a lot. Like, there were a lot of interviews with a lot of billionaires, but they don't really talk about what value that money has after a certain threshold, right? Like, how much money do you actually need, right? It's not much,
Need finished a long time before.
Yeah, well,
need is way back there with the plebs and the peasants.
Well, let's say to live a luxurious life, let's say, all right, when you have that much money, it's not billions, right? It's maybe a couple of $1,000s a month that you actually need, right? But they don't seem to answer that question. It's very weird. I haven't seen that. Maybe you guys have.
There is an interview, and from what they interviewed people like Bill Gates and stuff, and what they answered was, when you get to a certain level, like the billions, they say what we're looking for.
Are we there yet, Rami? Is it?
They want power. Oh, it's not working, is it? Oh man.
No, we can hear you now. We can hear you.
Okay, good. And what I was saying was, there is an interview where they ask these people, and they said that what they seek after money is change. Like, they want to be able to institute change and like their vision of the world onto the world, because now nothing is stopping them. Money is not necessarily stopping them. So whether it's to get into politics or to, like Elon Musk, I want to change the way transportation works, they are now able to go, really do what they want. And I think that's what's after the billions.
Because I think
I feel like you can see that with kind of Bill Gates as well. Like, you know, he bought up a bunch of farmland, so he has an idea of like growing sustainable food and everything. So I feel like for those people, it's not like the money is converted into like new opportunities for their ideas to take hold. So I feel like it's not the greed of money, but just their ideas and being able to put them into action.
Is it power though? Because you see, money clearly can't be a motivational factor if you're Jeff Bezos or or Bill Gates. Money would have dissolved it would have long dissolved in front of you. You would no longer be motivated by money, but maybe there would be alternate power, other elements that still drive you as a human being. I mean, I don't know what those, like you're saying, maybe like Rami said, maybe the ability to influence, the ability to kind of, it's an interesting thought. I'll have to wait till I get to my first billion and then right. So yeah, I mean, following from, speak about money and these people, he touches on this, what he calls the cult of the free market, this kind of thing that this world, or the free world, or the world at large really, prides itself on free markets, that they're not government controlled. But this is a bit of a paradox, because ultimately, how free are they? There's still tyranny linked to this, hence the cult of free markets. I mean, is that something interesting about that whole section that you'd like to share? Because I found really fascinating where he kind of highlights the whole rise of these historical companies. To be honest, I didn't realize how powerful some of them were until I was reading his book, when he speaks about the Dutch companies. And I mean, I did know about the East India Company, but the way he speaks about some of them and how this gave birth to the stock market and the shares that we kind of see now, where people saw it as a safe kind of bet to say, well, I ain't going to physically do that, but I'll invest. So I'm not going to put all my eggs in this basket, but I'll kind of put an egg in there and something in there, and you end up developing this kind of stocks and shares. And then you've got the London Stock Exchange, and you've got in Amsterdam. And I mean, I found that very very interesting from an informative perspective. What about you guys? Anything interesting on that you'd like to kind of put out there, maybe discuss?
Well, for what it's worth, I don't know if it's related, but I've just read Shoe Dog. It's a book by Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, or the founder of Nike. Amazing book. Like the story of Nike is really amazing, how he built it and everything. But then afterwards, I was watching this interview, and well, in the book he says, well, I wanted to create the perfect shoe that people all over the world could enjoy it and do their favorite sports in it and etc. But then in an interview, he's confronted with a question like, why do people in Indonesia and Vietnam live in those terrible conditions, people that work at your factory, at the Nike factories? And he doesn't want to answer that question. And I know it's a multi-layered, complex answer, but it's like this cognitive dissonance, because in the book he's really like heartfelt, and he's genuine, and he tells a story, like all his flaws and everything. But then when you look at that interview, it's like this completely different image that you see. Like, is he not honest? Like, is he not telling us the truth? Is it just greed? Is he doing it for the money purely? Like, I don't know what to think of that. Like, I love Nike, and it's like,
because he kind of touches on that topic in this book, where he says, you see these people who, so he'll speak about which is it's the Dutch company, isn't it, with Indonesia, that had the large Indonesian kind of company. They were the Dutch, weren't they? And so so he speaks about the tyranny that they were kind of unleashing in Java and these places in Indonesia. But he mentions that these same people would have children whom they love and families back home, and they've the very caring, supporting kind of, that they are basically, there are no pure villains. The irony being that no person themselves sees themselves as the villain in a story. And in some ways that's I feel the tragic downplay of movies sometimes, that they, especially very simplistic kind of movies, that you have a good guy and you have a bad guy, and the bad guy, in the traditional set, is this villain that he knows he's the villain, and and everybody knows he's the villain, and he looks like a villain, and the good guy is this. But in real life, everybody feels they are the good guy, even the bad guy. So even Hitler, in his mindset, would think he's the good guy. He wouldn't think he's the villain. He would think, no, I'm the good guy. I'm restoring greatness to the Germanic people. I'm bringing back a glory, and the scapegoat, whether they were the Jewish people or whoever, but that he's doing something. Nobody sees themselves as the villain, and in life, real life, they will be people that they will be very loving towards, very caring towards. So when he says these same, Dutch companies that were committing atrocities elsewhere were still very loving towards their own children, and very, it's this, it's not a binary. And I feel that, so the same thing that what you're saying, somebody who's saying, look, I'm doing all these great things, I'm so passionate about this shoe, and I'm so passionate about this, but at the same time I've got people in, I don't know, Bangladesh working in a factory making this so cheap under, inhumane conditions, but I'm not really thinking about that. I'm thinking, well, they're better than not having it. You understand? And so this is the kind of the irony of I suppose capitalism. That's an interesting one, because this whole, what he speaks about, the cult of free markets, it rests on capitalism. How do you feel about the thought of capitalism? Because it's something that once again is deemed by some to be the devil, and by some, I don't know, the savior. Where do you guys? What are some of your thoughts? Who else is Lee? Are you with us? Is Lee? Nope. Lee's right. What about you, Zakira? What are your thoughts? Where do you because this is all nesting itself in capitalism, and capitalism is quite I think especially many people look down on capitalism. And he does list many reasons why you could. Where do you guys stand with that?
For me, to be honest, I don't actually have an opinion, and that's the worst opinion to have. I don't have an opinion that it is, inherently bad, because what is the opposite or the antithesis of capitalism? What is it?
So that is an
socialism.
Opinion. So yeah.
So it's like, what is the is it socialism, or is it communism? And then that's considered quite bad based on the history of whatever happened previously. So they definitely are. Yeah. But just like as with money, it is also, there is a necessary component to it. Because if we don't have it, then would there be that growth? So when we were talking earlier about the Dutch East India Company, and that also saw the pie growing, because previously in his book he mentioned that, okay, the pie was a certain size, and if I took a bigger piece, it meant somebody else was being shortchanged. And then with capitalism and credit, there was growth, there was opportunities. So there are also, you can't ignore that, you can't ignore that. So
I mean,
So yeah,
I agree with exactly what you're saying. I personally, my view as well. I don't see capitalism as bad per se, but I feel that I can understand. He highlights some of the dangers. He says that, he'll highlight that we're under the Nazi regime and I don't know, Christianity. You've seen many people get slaughtered. He said you've seen much more under the banner of capitalism. If you're going to look at things like, I suppose, the whole kind of slave trade, you're going to look at things like the companies that were set up, or even prior to that, Latin America and its kind of colonization. It's all on the back of this money, ultimately capitalism and growth. So I can see what he's saying, that ultimately, and I think everybody would agree, but it isn't. Is it necessarily something people wanting, even this sense of greed to want more money? Is it necessarily a bad thing? Because I mean, he shows how Adam Smith.
Sorry,
No?
I think one of the things that he also highlighted about it is that the difference between the people of old and now wanting more money, and I think one of the key differences in capitalism is that when the kings and whoever had loads of wealth and they hoarded it and they squandered it and then it got looted or something along those lines, the difference with capitalism is that that money was then taken and then invested, into maybe a bigger company, creating more job opportunities, things like that. So there are those. So I'm not.
Isn't that always the
ignoring.
case, though? Isn't money always ultimately reinvested? And this is where Adam Smith had that kind of revolution in showing people in The Wealth of Nations that greed actually can be a good thing, because he's said that, look, when a person builds a huge shop and it's thriving, he has to employ local people, and then he has to pay them, and he has to buy things from other people, and things are ultimately trickling back down into that kind of catchment area. And that's common sense to us today, but 400 years ago that wasn't common sense. So today we think, of course, that makes if a Tesco's decides to open up around the corner, it's going to employ people who are going to live around here, and they will ultimately be a kind of trickling down to some extent. I'm not saying all its money is going to trickle down, but there is a reinvestment. That pie does, local people do take a piece of that pie as well. But yeah,
Mufti, like maybe an ethical question. Do you think that greed and being a good person can coexist, basically? Like greed, we all like see it as something negative, right? And Adam Smith
greed is definitely a negative term.
It's a negative characteristic, let's say, like it's a negative. So, like, how does that coexist with having upright morals and like being a good human, basically? Like, what do you think about that?
Can I just say that
course.
I just think that you do need to have a moral. There has to be a sense of morality with it. So you, as the business owner or the person that is on that top chain, you do have a sense of responsibility to the community. It's like this concept of Ubuntu I spoke of. You have to give back to your community. So if you're sitting there on the top, it doesn't mean you get to enjoy it alone. You have to give back to your community, because you are essentially making your money off your community. So sorry, I just wanted to add that in.
But the question then would be that, you see, when you say you have to give back, how would you define have to give back?
That's what taxes are, I guess.
Sorry?
I mean, that's what taxes are for, right? Because when people, according to the pay, they have to give a certain amount of taxes, because they would use it for other things, but taxes are mostly for these things only, like for education and other things. The government takes taxes from them, so that's one way of doing it. Because if he himself is given a choice to do something for the people, then he will do it in such a way that he also gets money out of it. Like he'll just try to increase his own capital, like in the process. Most of the people,
But who
don't-
wouldn't? Let's just be honest. Most people, that's
wouldn't.
going to be most people. They would like if people will give, but they will always. You see, I think it's incredibly naive to assume that we, as human beings, are not driven for the self. We are always driven for the self, and I think it would be incredibly foolish to. I mean, I get the fact we won't want to admit to it because it sounds negative. It's like greed. Nobody would want to admit that they have greed, but we all have greed. It's a creature characteristic which we can't be devoid of. But it's horrible to say it because it sounds horrible. So I think in the same way we are all driven by personal interests. We are ultimately self-centered, but we also want to do other noble things as well. It doesn't, you see, it's not a binary. Doesn't mean just because we have some self-centered greed, we don't want to help people. We do as well, because that's incredibly rewarding as well. So, yeah.
But that's also what makes it sustainable, the fact that if you are trying to do something good to uplift your community and you are getting it back, it makes it as a long-term sustainable operation that can carry on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, although I do feel that a lot of people, if given the choice, would like to get away with stuff as opposed to be taken to task for it. But so, for example, let's say giving back to the community. So there's certain things that are inevitable, like if you open let's say you opened a huge, I don't know, Asda or Sainsbury's or something, you would have to employ people because that's how you're going to get the job done. So you will naturally, and this in your mind isn't giving back, but you are giving back because you are employing people. But then there's actual giving, which is for free, gratis. Now this thing where you give something for free, I think people don't like that in the kind of capitalist world. They don't like to kind of give things for free, but they may do it because it saves them. You see, so a lot of large companies, corporations, they have a quota, a community quota. And part of that is really because it serves on their tax interests. But they do. So banks and huge corporations, for example, if you're a school or you're a community organization, you could apply to a local bank or a local institution that is quite wealthy, let's say Sainsbury's or something, a large kind of institution, and you could ask them to support a project, and they would have a community mandate to do so. So here they are giving for free, but really it's just a way to kind of save a certain amount of tax that they're going to have to end up paying anyway. And it makes them look good because they'll be able to say, well, we help out the local community.
And it's great marketing too.
Exactly. It's like they'll take a few photographs, and I mean, a lot of companies do, a lot of corporations do this. Yeah.
Mufti, do you think that those big companies, or individuals rather, that they would pay taxes out of their own volition? Like, let's say they were given a choice to not pay those taxes.
They will most certainly bend the rules to wherever they can. I mean, just take a look at a place like Amazon or Costa, or you'll get these Starbucks. I'm pretty sure Starbucks as well, where as soon as the tax was laid on them, they just shifted abroad. And so the way they do it, I mean, huge corporations do it in a way that they will have a company abroad, and this then company has to pay a certain kind of residual to that company. And the way it works is their profit is always kind of offset by what they have to pay this company, which is offshore, which is them. So in that sense, your profit doesn't count to, and it doesn't reach technically an amount, although it does, to pay any tax. So they pay, this is how, if you see how do Amazon and these companies not pay any tax within the UK, it's because they have to residually keep paying the offshore company, which is this loan. So for example, that's one of the techniques that they just take. But anyway, I mean, I agree with you. I don't think if companies were given the choice that they would I don't think anybody willfully would want to just give away a lot of money. It's amazing, isn't it? It's money, isn't it? It's that kind of.
Well,
This is
my bookkeeper doesn't think that. He's so pro taxes. Like he loves paying taxes. And I love that actually in him. That's why he's my bookkeeper. I love the fact that he, or he's a Muslim individual, and that's also important, of course, for me. But and he says, no, I'm not gonna avoid taxes. I'm not gonna duck taxes. I'm gonna pay them as the good civilian that I am.
That's very
What?
admirable. And
Yeah, it is.
I feel that there's something that a lot of people don't realize, and some people do, especially some of these kind of motivational moguls and people like that. That you see, and we've really had this in our tradition from the get go. That really, it is like unfathomably rewarding in fulfillment to give, but it's counterintuitive. You see, it doesn't make any sense, does it? Like if I say, I've got, I don't know, £200 in my wallet, should I give it away for free? And you think, well, then I'll just be £200 less. But really, that's, it's amazing that the reward and fulfillment in helping it brings a contentment to life that having triple the amount of money wouldn't. But people, because it's so counterintuitive and rational, people don't do it. And this is why some of these key motivational speakers will always be very big. Even non-religious ones will be big on giving because of the rewards that it brings back to you as a person, and just feeling like that fulfillment. I think
this is a little bit similar to like what a couple of you have talked about, but like a theme or something I was thinking about as I was reading about it, and as all of you have been chatting, is they had the growth of capitalism. They were able, the creation of the shares and all of that, and it allowed them to grow beyond just the sustainability. But one thing that really interested me is that we have this tremendous growth, and yet there's still this huge mindset of scarcity, and somehow that carried itself alongside capitalism, which is why we have this situation with Amazon, why why greed has a negative connotation to it. Like there's nothing wrong with having a accumulation of things for a particular purpose, but what is the balance between excess accumulation, especially towards one group, one individual, and leaving about the others. And I just really thought about, and something even in my own life, I just really think about, in my own life, I definitely practice giving, and I see the immense benefits of doing that. And I just wonder, how can there be a change in this, because it's really a collective conscious, like how can there be a movement of change to, I'm using like terms that make people feel emotional, but like a more socialized capitalism, where there is that, more giving back to the community. Because to me, like capitalism has become a serious, quantity over quality. And something that I personally have an interest in is like textiles, like beautiful textiles. And I appreciate fast fashion, but like you see what's happened with fast fashion. Anybody that knows anything about it, it's crazy what it's done to the planet. And I don't know, like how can there be how can we balance, how can it be a balance?
Because could it, and also it could be that it tips the balance. So, like, one of the things I was really quite, mind blown by when I was reading about, and I was thinking about quite a bit, was about King Leopold the Second, and what he highlights that. Oh, and I was thinking, I remember discussing. Oh, that's actually probably why I read that as Leopold. So King Leopold, you see, he, according to this version, he had highlighted that he initially, with the colonial kind of escapades going on, had asked to set up a humanitarian effort in Central Africa. And he said he was going to set up a non-governmental humanitarian project dealing with infrastructure and healthcare for the Central Africans. And they gave him, the colonial powers kind of set aside for him land which was like 75 times the size of Belgium. And then he turns out to be one of the most tyrannical, like vicious colonialists that goes out there and maims and kills. But he begins with this kind of, I'm here for the people, innama nahnu muslihun, we are people to do islah, and he says, I'm here to help to tackle the slave trade and make sure no people are being enslaved, and make sure they've got hospitals and healthcare and infrastructure. And you fast forward a couple of decades, and they've the amount, the quantity that have been killed for rubber especially. So I don't know, let's just say, this may not be true, but let's just go with it, benefit of the doubt. Let's say he was sincere in his intention when he began. Let's say he was. He began with this intention that I want to, there's a slave trade going on, there's tyranny, I want to help these people. So he goes in as this, with this, let's say, according to him and people, with a clean heart. But within a generation's time, it has gone 180 to become a vicious tyrant. That is, I mean,
I don't buy that, Mufti. I don't buy the fact that it was an admirable.
No,
attempt.
I'm not. But what I'm saying is, even if you go in with that, there was some intention.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he was Mother Teresa, but let's say there was some genuine, let's just say, I mean, even if we buy that he felt that I'm going to do something noble as well. Like, people sometimes want to do something noble to show other people that, unlike you barbarians, I'm civilized, haha. Yeah. And maybe, I mean, I'm not saying he did, but let's just say we take his word for it. How that shifts so suddenly to become something so evil when it sees opportunity, it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, I'm from Belgium myself, so it's kind of a close to home subject. And there are a lot of nationalists here that use those ideas to defend not tearing down Leopold statues and stuff. Okay. So things that have happened with the BLM movement. And it's weird, it's like people love stories, right? Yeah, but Leopold did this for Belgium, and we are here now because of him, because of his efforts to convince those nations to give him that money and that land. So I think what he did was probably is tap into that, that people are susceptible to admirable things, right? To admirable attempts. And I think he kind of tapped into that and convinced them to give whatever he needed to build that, colonial power in Congo. I don't know if it's realistic that he could shift that fast. I don't know. Like, if he had any, kind of moral or I don't know, this upright idea of bringing change, and then shift that fast in a generation.
But I think even if he had some, because I don't believe personally anybody is 100% evil. Yeah. And I don't believe anybody is 100% good in that sense, that people will always be somewhere on the spectrum. They'll have some good in them, some bad, and some will preponderate at times. So even if he did have, I mean, even if he did, like, felt that, look, I want to do something as well. Like, I know I'll take some profits and I'll do some good. But it turns into something which is like a Frankenstein. And that just goes to show the power of how humans can flip. You know, when you give them their own little world, and there's profit, and there's money, and there's opportunities, and there's nobody policing you. Yeah, psychopathic, I guess.
Well, maybe
No,
he's not a
like
good example.
No?
I don't
because
know.
it's
I
so
feel like
extreme.
there's so much. Oh, my
Yeah,
bad.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was to. I mean, this. I always think about things in just a completely, I don't know, different way. But to me, I just think about the complexities of human existence. You know, like I think about, for example, like, you know, think about these people that started Amazon, Microsoft. You know, they just started from these very,
Garage.
you know,
From the
yeah, and
garages.
they very.
Have you seen that meme where they say all these started from a garage? And it says, what's your excuse? And the guy says, well, I don't have a garage.
Yeah. You know, to me, I think about it and I'm like, you know, the initial people that worked with them, you know, they probably were like, oh, they probably had a much more fair and balanced way of separating the assets. So then you have to ask, like, what is it that changes? What is it that lessens the humanization, like the humanity of it as it grows? And to me, I just think about, you know, they're then just basing their decisions upon their personal experiences that have been passed down to them through life. And I don't, and so I think about that, and that's why I talk about collective conscious, because I'm like, okay, well, you know, up until modern times, you know, there was a lot more, you know, conflict, famine, death, you know, industrialization really changed things. Even now we have, you know, I mean, you know, he even in the book he talks about how the nature of war is changing.
Yeah.
And I think about that and I'm like, okay, well, you know, so they're tapping into something. They're tapping into some sort of conquest. But what is that conquest?
At what price, you mean? At what price?
Yeah, and are they mixing up the conquest of capitalization with, you know, the conquest of man and territory and, you know, survival and existence?
I mean, can we ever truly separate these things? Humans will always be driven for, you know, this with this kind of territorial, even if it's become you know, at a mental level. So imperialism today isn't in that sense, but it's imperialism for resources, and it's still going on, but it's more about, you know, okay, we won't take their land, we'll just take, you know, we'll take this, or we'll take their oil, or we'll take their markets. You know, we want them to buy our products, our services, and it's still a form of imperialism. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the question. See, and that's where this book left me very, I don't know, like thoughtless, because I said, because for me, obviously, maybe not obviously, but for somebody like me, I say, okay, well, is there a way to, you know, change this? Is there a way to make it better? And you look at these systems that are continuously in place, and, you know, I'm like, okay, well, maybe not, but maybe, who knows?
But when, you know, the flip side of that is, in this, let's say, this last century, the kind of, it's much more than even a leapfrog, but the kind of leaps that human civilization has made in such a short span of time. There was a it wasn't a meme, but it was just like a poster, I guess. I'll share it on my Insta story tonight. It said, it had a picture of the first plane. I think it was the Wright brothers trying their plane, and that kind of prototype plane. And it had a picture of the moon landing. And it said, and I can't believe these were just 66 years apart. And, you know, that's a human lifetime. That, you know, from the first let's taste flight to we've landed on the moon. I mean, that's, you know, when you think about it, it's like, this is all happening we are alive in these times. It is incredibly profound at the same time. I mean, it's a bewilderment. It's like a concoction of emotions. We could, I don't know. And then, yeah.
Oh, I would say I would agree. And I think, I sometimes have to balance, we have to balance like, how we feel about something with the rationality behind it. But I think sometimes in this cases, they can merge together because obviously it feels good for everybody to, have certain, certain standards of living, and we now know that it's possible due to the amount of growth that has happened in such a short time, and the technology and new technologies. And so that is where I sometimes stop myself. I'm like, am I being too like utopian here? But I'm like, I don't think so, because I think with the sharing of information, the problem that I see, I'm not going to call it a problem, but the situation I see now is that we're in our lifetime at this current time, I feel like the environment is we're still just switching blame back and forth based upon what's happening between the groups. We're just, continuing in that cycle of just, the back and forth. When people are able to sort of just like take a step above that, and I think a little bit more collectively, and utilize capitalism, utilize technology,
he kind of hypothesizes that we are on that elevator or that escalator, so to speak, but it is happening with computers and machines and artificial intelligence and algorithms, that they are already taking over human jobs. They are already taking over. He says, like, so for example, it won't be long before we'll have self-driven taxis. And he gives the example of where you had taxi bases all over the world, and now you just have this app, Uber, and it drastically reduced kind of people in the middle, and you've got really just algorithms and codes and some people manning it, but really it just manages everyone worldwide. And you've got
sorry. Well, let me tell you something. This is what was so fascinating to me, because he was saying, from a capitalistic standpoint, then the human is useless. And I said, yes, exactly. That's exactly.
No, they aren't.
I mean, the thing is, from a capitalistic standpoint, this is talking about totally utilitarianism. We're taking completely, like, because we've been through these, industrial times, we've taken out a lot of just, like, especially in the US, people are working 60 hours a week, 70 hours a day. Like, this is this, and even as like Muslims, like, is this like the Muslims, so many Muslims, they've taken on this, idea that we're just supposed to struggle and life is supposed to be hard. And I'm like, I feel like the test is that, like, that's not really the test. The test is that, like, that's not life. Like, if a law is like, like, if Allah is how we see him and we take his divine names like Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, then that should be how our life is. And so if we have these technologies assisting us in our life,
I
then
think he's saying you don't have a choice. It's not up to you. They will just replace you. Oyster, what were you saying? You were about to say
what
that.
I'm saying is, what will they be able to do with their lives? So if you have technology making your life easier so that you are not having to have so much, physical and mental exertion in those areas, then that means that you can focus on a different type of existence, which is going to be towards that, utopian dream of, like, everybody is benefiting everyone.
Yeah, but his point, his kind of hypothesis was that it's not really, you don't get a say in this. This will just happen, because his hypothesis, because he was trying to say that, you see, people will willfully just become, because if I owned a company and I could hire, let's say, 100 people to do a certain job, but now I could just hire 7, and I just have everything computerized. Now the computers are much more efficient. They will make less mistakes. They don't require breaks. They can work around the clock. They require some maintenance, but I can pay for that as a one-off. And so people will just, he's saying it'll just organically go in that direction. It already seems to be, according to him. It's quite scary, you're right, reading it, because he turns a bit,
scary.
I mean, he turns it a bit doom and gloom, I felt.
Well, that's where social policy comes into play. If you had, like, if we continue on this cycle of, you know, quote unquote, this wealth being accumulated, you know, people are gonna revolt against that. So I don't know if this is just the natural, you know, progression of people.
Let's take an example where he says, look, he gives the example of IBM Watson, which is already at use in the UAE and certain parts of the world. So it can analyze within seconds, really, and, you know, definitely within just, literally seconds, within a minute, it would analyze what would take, you know, expert doctors countless hours and days to kind of come up with certain, and they could be tired, they could miss.
But that doesn't mean that the IBM Watson or computers like these will take places of doctors. That actually is not very much likely to happen. See, like during Industrial Revolution, all these machines, they did not replace humans. They just created another, let's say, an avenue for humans, you know, so that they could become engineers. They could like work on certain
but
other
he
things.
gives the example.
Computers did not replace humans.
So
Similarly,
they
AI,
did
they did not replace humans.
They did replace humans in like the manual labor. They obviously
They
made
did
machines.
in manual labor. When people move to different avenues, people
services.
become
So right
computer
now,
engineers.
the largest industry that in the Western world is services, but services can be automated. Like IBM is a prime example of automating a service and doing it much more efficiently.
It took it years. It took it years and years of correction, learning, data, and it needed a lot of computation power to come to this point.
As they
it's not possible for every computer to come to that point, because
of
that's
course, it would cost billions. Like it would. But it would cost billions. But as time progresses, it becomes cheaper. Like, let's say the first computer would have cost a ridiculous amount to make, and now everybody's phone is probably, you know, much more powerful than the first computer. So what he's saying is that as corporations start to rival each other, things start to get cheaper. That's just the nature of the markets. Now, the example he speaks about doctors, like why can't doctors be replaced? He says that, and he gives the example that they can, because what does a doctor actually do? He says a doctor checks symptoms. Now, he says it's actually quite easy with a lot of these apps for you to check. Your GP just checks your blood pressure. He checks your kind of, he'll check things like your heartbeat. He'll check this, and he'll measure it up against your historical medical data, your family history, what's going on in the city currently. And he said, imagine a computer could do that within seconds by searching what words were being used, flu pandemics, colds. If people have got a cough today in their emails, he knows that there's 300 more emails today in London where people have sent an email saying I've got a cough. So it picks up on that. He knows, and he gives a good example of the stock markets when in, I think it was 2013 or something, where somebody hacked the Associated Press and said the White House had been attacked. So the shares rapidly dropped, and the Dow Jones had dropped by, I think, 150 points. But as soon as the Associated Press had corrected it, because you see, this was the downside, because as soon as it got hacked, these algorithms picked up, oh my God, America, the dollar, and it started dropping, selling. But as soon as it realized, within minutes, within 6 minutes, so it had lost something like, I think, 150 billion, and it regained it within 6 minutes because of the algorithms. and he says like that could never. And there was another incident where he cites, I'm pretty sure, like a ridiculous amount going into something much higher, but they recovered it within minutes, and the human capacity could never have done that. It's interesting because ultimately it comes down to money. Because if you had a choice and you're the customer, like a good example, like he gives about Angelina Jolie and her, where she has surgery. What where she has her breasts removed, mastectomy. That's it, right? So she has that given her genetic data, so she doesn't actually have any cancerous signs, but the kind of readings tell her she's very likely 80-something% likely to develop breast cancer. So she says, I'm going to preempt it and I'm going to go and have surgery. I don't even have cancer yet, but the algorithms, the computer is telling me it's very likely I'm going to develop breast cancer within the next 5 years maybe, or 10 years. So why don't I jump the gun and have surgery? So she undergoes excruciating.
That's actually a particular gene which shows how much disposition you have to get kind of.
But a doctor couldn't have done that.
Exactly.
But a doctor couldn't have done that.
Couldn't have done that.
So if you were in that position,
the genetic level. But people who do the testing, they are humans, right? A machine doesn't do that.
No, it's actually the machine, because you send off your DNA. Oh, I mean, no. Sorry, in her, in her case,
not the DNA, but it is operated. That machine, exactly, like it's a gene. I don't remember the name of that gene.
Oh yes.
So yes. Angelina Jolie, her mother had breast cancer.
Yeah.
Her mother had breast cancer, and she died of breast cancer. And her aunt also has breast cancer. Yeah. She also died of breast cancer, and that's why she got her genes tested. And in that case, she had
there's a case where she doesn't actually have the disease, but a machine tells her that you are likely, by statistics, 87% likely, let's say, to develop this in the next few years. Thereby, you act and actually conduct surgery. So it's very telling. Like, let's say you're in that position now, tomorrow, or I'm in that position where a machine tells me that, look, you haven't actually got this yet, but there is a 67% chance or an 87% chance this will happen. You might as well jump the gun. And you see, it's a very difficult position. Let's be honest. I'll be very, because you'd feel like, maybe I should do something about this.
Yeah, that's like telling the future.
Yeah, and
I think it kind of tied. If I could point out that, I think for me, like after I finished the book, I was kind of thinking, like, how is this related? How is all the AI stuff related to the money?
Exactly.
And I realized it was like the trust aspect, right? So he was saying that money, because of its utility and its trust, became like this dominating thing.
But trust
like,
AI
now. AI.
I don't know. We
work
on AI. Trust it.
I mean, AI, like, if you say AI, it sounds so weird, but already these systems are being used at doctors' offices right now. So I used to, like, strive for them.
But they are doing very menial jobs. They are, and the ones that do, this kind of jobs, even they are banned by humans, and they have lots of human supervision among them.
That he says that you only have to solve the problem once. So if your program isn't working, you only need to put in the money time to get that solution.
He's not, because here, Oyster, he's saying, like you said, that let's say these are in a very minimal capacity, but are they? We ourselves saw with the Brexit propaganda, and there was the the major documentary. What was it again? The big the company, the
Cambridge Analytica.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
The Cambridge
Cambridge Analytica.
Cambridge Analytical, that's it. How these people, they target, and this was done in America, and how they targeted people and they twisted their vote, whether it was with Brexit or whether it was over there, and they swung them towards, like if they start showing you, like let's say algorithms start bombarding you, like let's say today, algorithms start bombarding us with just racist attacks. Like everywhere I go, I keep seeing news that there's racist attacks. I naturally will start thinking about security and start thinking about, you become very conservative, like you become by default. And yeah, because let's say tomorrow one of the politicians said, oh, if you vote for me, we're going to crack down on racists. And now the algorithms keep sending me racist attacks. And I feel that, you know what, let's go with them. Now, I've just been primed because I've just been conditioned by algorithms. And it works. It clearly works. I mean, it's
like, doesn't it come down to the fact that
human?
Yeah, well, like I kind of agree with Oyster in what she says. Like, we need humans to have hunches, to have intuitions. Like, maybe I could use this computer to develop something that predicts whether I will have breast cancer or not, right? So I think it comes down to us being the best versions of ourselves and staying ahead of, whatever developments there are.
What he argues that he doesn't say there'll be no need for humans. He says there will be a de-individuation. So the individual won't be needed. Like, there will be a class of humans that will always be necessary, but the vast majority may become a useless class. Like, what do they have to offer? Like, he says, like, just think of it now. Like, think of the majority of the people. What are they good at? Like, they're not actually good at anything, mostly speaking. They're not engineers and astrophysicists and, they're not, like, majority of the people are just kind of doing just regular stuff that can be taken over by machines and algorithms and automated. Like, let's say you're a taxi driver. If tomorrow Uber just automated its cars, that's taken out all the taxi drivers. Let's say nowadays people have things dropped off.
Probably happens.
Like Amazon, you buy online.
Like,
now that's removing shops. That's
well,
his point.
Maybe like they're predicting a decrease in population, right? Over the coming 100 years, they're saying that it will probably drop down to 3 billion, 4 billion. Like, maybe it will go hand in hand. The more we what was the word he used? I don't remember.
No, so he says that, like, what it is you have the individual is individual. He's indivisible. He's something unique.
Yeah.
He says this culture of the 20th century that you are unique, he says, is no longer true in the 21st century because you are actually just an algorithm. And he says some people might be unique, like, let's say, computer programmers and software. But he says the majority of the people are not them. So he says that there will always be a need for some people, but a lot of people might be redundant. Now, there is an interesting point he says. He says, look, maybe the way, like, let's say you go back when industrialization began and it knocked out, computers, machines tried to knock out all these manual jobs. We developed new jobs. Like today, you've got graphic designers. You didn't have graphic designers 50 years ago. So he says that's true. Maybe we'll create new industries. But the question is, we don't know what those industries are, so we can't teach our children to prep for them in school. It's like, because...
Well, I don't believe that, actually. I believe there is an essence in the human being that when you see patterns, I'm a strong believer, in patterns, right? Like, if you are able to see patterns and connect the dots, basically, I think you could do that in any age.
But tell me, what could detect patterns better than you?
Yeah, you would say computers, right?
Exactly. A computer could detect patterns much better than you.
But computers don't have hunches, right? Computers don't have intuitions. And I think because we are able to connect dots and have intuition, that makes us superior, in my opinion.
But what is intuition? Isn't intuition influenced by, like, whatever, like, maybe you're in a bad mood, maybe you saw something, you read something, like a lot of medical students as well. They'll say that sometimes, like, some medical students, because they were reading that chapter, they'll be able to figure out, like, the disease better than a well-trained doctor.
Let me share a brief paragraph, part of a paragraph from here. This is on page 117. He highlights a recent study commissioned by Google's nemesis, Facebook, has indicated that already today the Facebook algorithm is a better judge of human personalities and disposition than even people's friends, parents, and spouses. The study was conducted on 86,000 people plus, who have a Facebook account. And basically, this Facebook algorithm, it detected a person was made to answer 100 questions. And it predicted their responses, and it was more accurate if they had ticked something like he mentions, if they had ticked 150 likes on Facebook. Let's just say in your time you've ticked easily 150 likes. It could predict your responses, your selection, your answers better than your family members would guess for you. And if you ticked 300, it actually ticked it better than you. It predicted. The study shows it's crazy. It says, in other words, if you happen to have clicked 300 likes on your Facebook account, the Facebook algorithm can predict your opinion and desires better than your husband or wife can predict for you. So the person who lives with you, Facebook already can guess your answer better than they will think you're going to guess what you're going to say. This is already a study that was done a few years ago. So now it's probably improved. It's crazy. It's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is crazy.
It's freaky as hell.
Definitely. Like, I can't, that's undeniable. Like, for example, there's also the example of Tinder. Tinder has like an 800-page file on you and knows when you're in the mood for affection, right? So they have like numbers like around New Year's, for example.
Good thing we haven't got Tinder accounts.
Around New Year's, it skyrockets because people are looking for partners, right? Romantic partners around New Year's.
Oh, right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's crazy what they know about us, but maybe intuition is not a good term. You're right. Maybe I think.
No, I do believe in intuition. I do believe what you're saying.
I think like a hypothesis, right? Like you have to have a hypothesis to
One
test
thing
something.
that AI cannot do is like whenever we train an AI, we give them data, we give them lots and lots of data. So it just acts based on those data. It converts it into mathematical algorithm, and then it learns from the past, and then it acts according to that data. For example, when we testing on self-driving cars, let's say, so for making that AI to understand like what a road looks like, you have to feed them with like thousands and thousands and thousands pictures of roads specifically, so that this AI understands, okay, this is a road, okay, this is a road. And if there is an off-road thing, then it will get confused and it goes the other way. So I think the main problem which people and engineers face is
AI, it has the ability to learn. So it's not just a computer algorithm, it has artificial intelligence. So it learns as it keeps. So as it keeps going, it learns. It teaches itself.
As we keep giving it data, it learns with that.
But it can get the data itself.
Only learn on the basis of that data. It cannot go anything beyond that.
No, it can actually. So Google, it can do. Like so, for example, it can. As long as it has the tools and the algorithms on how to acquire new data. So let's say it can do Google searches. Now, it doesn't need you now because it can do Google searches. And it can do so as long as it's first been designed to be able to do Google searches to add to its intelligence. It can now just keep doing that. In fact, he gives an example of what was it, a Korean company, or it's a company which has an artificial intelligence as one of the board members, and it gets a vote, and it votes as part of the startup it has nepotism. It votes for companies that promote artificial intelligence. It's crazy. It takes on. What was that experiment that they did on Twitter that they had to shut down very soon because it started to get very nasty? Like they did this artificial.
Microsoft did this. Microsoft did an experiment. They had their own AI that basically took questions and answered them, and then people manipulated it to talk positive about Hitler and stuff like this. Or racism.
Yeah, there was one that it became racist.
Yeah, it became racist. That was shut down.
They had to shut it down. They were like, we're turning this into a monster here.
Yeah, so the organization I'm working for is going through the same phase that we're talking about.
What, becoming
basically
racist?
Well, not really, but it's more to do with the people that are working in it. So, for example, in our organization, they've got a new system since August, this new AI system that they've turned on. And this AI system is going to pick up every customer interaction with the company on how they behave. For example, if a customer makes a payment and they've missed that one digit from a reference, we will initially correct that for the customer, and the AI will pick up this pattern. So, for example, let's say the month after, if the customer does exactly the same mistake again, they've missed out a digit, the AI will automatically reallocate that to the correct record. Therefore, they don't need us on 100%. What they've explained is that the staff that they've got, they are going to start reducing those particular roles. And what they've told us is that you've got 2 years to upskill yourself to the next stage. Otherwise, those roles will be obsolete because the AI will do the basics. So the AI will interact with customer payments, queries, basic sort of interaction that they do with records, and anything that's complicated, that's where the human interaction will come in. So it's just like we were talking before. What good is majority of the human for? If you looked in the history, I think even where I live, in the area I live in the UK, obviously, there were no houses here. Most of it was like farmlands, so people worked on the farms most of the time. Look at it now, the farm does not exist. It's all homes everywhere, roads everywhere. So humans have moved on from the past. The jobs that we did majority in the past are done by machines, most of them now, and we moved on to the next stage.
Yeah.
So the next stage, I could give you an example, is Blockbuster. That was like a video store.
Yeah.
And it was everywhere. Now, obviously, we've got Netflix.
Remember
Amazon.
that, huh? The good old days. The good old days.
Good old days, yeah. So obviously,
not for us.
happened,
Not for us Asians. We had to go to the local desi kind of video store. Yeah. Only the privileged people got to go to Blockbusters.
So that's moved on. What's happened now with
Once
Netflix,
an AI was
Amazon?
taught to make jokes, like it was feeded lots of jokes.
Okay.
So that it make a joke by itself.
And
the jokes it made was, no, listen to the joke.
Yeah.
Knock knock. Who's there?
Who's there?
Alec.
Alec who?
Alec who? Alec knock knock jokes. That's it. That's what it came up with. It was feeded with 30,000 jokes, and that's what it came up with. That's why AI.
Yeah, but since but there's been what about the Turing tests and those that they built on, where they would ask you, or they did it with people flirting, and they would ask the person that there's two people, you're talking to two people, one of them is a machine. Mm-hmm. You have to guess which one. But the majority of the people didn't necessarily get it right. So that goes to show that they didn't like. And you'd think if somebody was flirting with you, you could tell if that was a machine or a person. But actually, it didn't. A lot of people actually got it wrong. They thought that who they thought was the human was the machine. That's quite freaky.
We have to see whether that flirting machine, like what algorithm was it built on? Like, did it learn it by itself, or does it, or what were the cues given to it? Because sometimes we give a cue. And
because I think
on what we have to know. Like,
because I think the whole point of artificial intelligence is it can search and develop, because you've given it those techniques to do that. So it could say, for example, what are the most common pickup lines? And it could run a search itself, and it could pick them, it could match trends. What are the most successful pickup lines? What are quirky pickup lines? And it could filter them out. And I suppose it would be more confident than a human, because a human might kind of be a bit like, oh, I don't know if I should say this. And the machine isn't going to have emotion, so it'll just say it. And it may come across like, oh, okay, that's nice of you. And you've been catfished by IBM.
Well, the question I ask myself is like, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I actually wanted to respond to you. Like, you use the term intuition, and I thought maybe like a better term is empathy. Like the robot doesn't have, so they may have a lot more knowledge, and
wow,
yes,
that's a very good point. But very good point.
Empathy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that.
I would
Mufti,
think...
we didn't hear anything of
Oh,
what
right.
you said.
Sorry. Sorry. What I said is that there was a discussion saying that, with these new Teslas and self-driven cars, that they would have an algorithm, and let's say as more of them appear in the future, let's say the car was to get into an accident, and it knows the probability that, look, I'm gonna, like, let's say it has to crash, and if it crashes this way, it endangers you more, or it crashes that way and hits someone but endangers you less. So it has to make a decision.
The trolley problem.
Yeah, but this is for a machine. If you're buying the machine, you would want the machine to always favor you. Like, I wouldn't buy a machine that says, you know what, if it came to the crunch, I'll favor the other person over you. I would think, well, I ain't paying for you. I'm paying for the one that favors me. So that's just like mind-blowing, isn't it? Because it's ethics. And you think, wow, machines making these... Isn't there a Will Smith movie about that, where the robot jumps in and saves him?
iRobot, yeah.
iRobot, yeah, that's it. And it doesn't save his kid, isn't it? That's the... I think his kid drowns, and because he feels there isn't... The robot does a statistic, there's only so much % chance.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
There
is this show. It's called The Good Place. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. And this kind of setup is presented there, where there's a train and it needs to choose between two tracks, right? Like on one track you have a child, I think, the other one 2 or 3 adults, and then which one does it pick, right? Which one does it run over? So it's like, are you going to hell based on that decision? It's like this very humorous setup.
Is the AI going to hell? It would be interesting, actually. What would the AI choose? That trolley kind of...
A friend of mine actually did this experiment.
Okay, wow.
Like, a classmate of mine actually did the AI trolley problem. Like, there was this trolley, like, it was like through a computer simulation. There was 2 rows, okay? One had 3 people, and the other had 2 people. So, first, it chose a utilitarian way that, 2 is less than 3. So I'm going to kill the 2 people. And then we gave it a more complex problem. Much complex. Like, one had a small kid, and the other had a bigger person. So would it prioritize the life of a small kid than an old person? So that was the thing.
This kind of gives you goosebumps in anticipation. What is the machine going to say?
Yeah. So now we wanted to see that, who is it going to crash? So it just killed both of them.
It killed both of them.
It killed the kid, and then it killed you, and then it killed the guy.
Was it the Terminator? Was it Arnie that had come back from... Damn. Why would it kill both of them?
I don't know. It was... Then we started to search for a bug, like, what and all. Actually, what... we gave the data based on different accident statistics and different views of people, like where people were asked, like, what to choose or anything like that. So it was given, like, if you tell your views that, I would choose to go this way or that way, it was given views of like many people, and according to that, it decided like what was a popular opinion. So, I think there was a bug or something. Killed both of them.
That's actually...
Whatever we were doing, it wasn't killing a cat. It wasn't killing a cat, whatever we were doing.
Oh, it wouldn't kill the cat?
It wasn't killing a cat.
Wow.
It wouldn't kill a cat.
Cats, huh? Just carry a cat with you wherever you go in these self-driven cars.
Yeah.
Say, look, if you kill me, you're going to kill the cat.
Consensus. It was going according to consensus. It was like... Because in the internet, people usually exaggerate cats, right? Cats are the best.
But what's interesting? You see, speaking about input, he has where he speaks about the app Waze, and I've used Waze, and the roadmaps, and he says that, you see, this is being fashioned by the people using it. So when it finds out that, for example, let's say this particular road is clogged up, so it will redirect you, But if it redirects everyone, then it knows that, oh, it's just going to clog up that road. So half of them it's got to trick and tell, well, you guys carry on this way, and the other half is got to tell to go this way. So how, this would be interesting. Who would it decide who to trick and who to?
That will be probably decided based on the algorithm. Like, it will see that which car would take more distance, or like which would be the first one to go. That too, it will be done according to a particular. It won't choose by itself.
And what about the attachments where we? You see, this is like still separate to us. But what about like because he has this whole section on the, the contact lenses, the kind of the little devices where we will become also like this new Homo Deus, this kind of where we can kind of zoom in or record or check sugar levels with the contact lenses. And so you've become basically through equipment, we have to always be switched on with our phone. And we have to always have like the phone charging, and because the data has to be up to what's my heart rate and what's my... it is interesting, very.
Yeah, there's some stories that people's lives have been saved by a simple heart rate monitoring or smartwatch, that it was irregular and it said like, hey, there's something wrong with your heartbeat, and people went to the doctors and, well, heart disease, and they were about to die, like that close. So it's a simple heart rate monitor, right? So that's
yeah, because his point was that people will do this willfully. They'll want to do it. It's not that it won't be imposed. They will give in. They won't even give in. They will themselves plead to have it. The irony of...
because of survival instinct. Or...
Yeah, because people will just think, actually, it's better for me. I should be... Like, now you have these apps. I did actually have one myself as well. I'd taken it off. The phone that kind of... Sorry, the watch that monitors how you sleep, and it'll kind of tell you your sleeping patterns, and you had light sleep and deep sleep, and I wore it for a little while, and then I just kind of was over the the kind of novelty of it. But it's like that, and you think, yeah, I don't know. I found the ending of it a bit doom and gloom because of all of that. I don't know if doom and gloom is the right word, but I found it a bit unnerving because of that human speciality, I guess, and you kind of feel, it's kind of saying, well, what makes you so special? Okay, there's consciousness, but what if you could do all these things without consciousness? And you think, well, we live in interesting times. It was good.
I think, I truly think that, that people are the only beings that can kind of understand the interconnectedness of the world. Like, I think a computer, processes data, and they can find patterns, and they can give you, data on the spot. But a human being can like reach further, I believe. Like they can see layers of existence that the computer will never be able to see, in my opinion. I don't know. How it's going to develop, but I'm pro tech, I'm pro AI. It's not that, but I want to believe that humans are special.
No, I believe you exactly. I believe that eureka moment doesn't come from the epiphanies. The human epiphanies don't just come from machines. Like, I don't think computers would be able to make epiphanies per se. But you see, his point was kind of like there will always be people, but they won't be most people, and which is kind of a bit sad as well when you think of it. It's kind of like, damn, I suppose it's a bit I don't know, I found that a bit dark because I suppose to be honest, I think what he's saying kind of holds up, that most people, when you think about it, what do most people like in one of his other books, he says, like, think about it, like if let's say there was kind of destruction, most people wouldn't know how to make a light bulb work. Most people wouldn't know how electricity works. Most people wouldn't, like, even the things we take for granted, we wouldn't, most of us don't know anything, like me included. We wouldn't know how to set up telephones, for example. We wouldn't know, even though we use them every single day. But yeah, I suppose it reminds us of our frailty, which is our vulnerabilities, and it's kind of unnerving to to come face to face with your weaknesses. Yeah.
Does he talk about the concept of like having this standard wage for everyone? Even if you don't work, you get like this standard allowance in the future, not right now.
I think slightly, and in the other book he does.
And say
where he discusses. I was thinking actually of the next book. We'll discuss it on the book lounge. I was thinking possibly of A Brave New World, which kind of ties into this whole thing of what if we did have a utopia. But then it's a very challenging narrative, because you see the question is motivation, isn't it? Like it's good saying, look, we give everybody so much money, but then I don't know, there's arguments both sides. I suppose you're helping people, but then there's the
it loses value, maybe.
Yeah, like what are people, what are they doing to, are we self-actualizing? And then there's the question, what if you could just take a pill and you could just be happy? And that's what he explores, and this is why
doesn't that exist already?
Not quite in this sense that in his you see, and we'll possibly, if we go with that book, that's what it's about. Aldous Huxley, about be interesting to kind of explore that what if you could, let's say on a daily basis, like as a vitamin, you take something and your, let's say happiness levels are from 1 to 10 being utmost bliss, and you are at a 10. Let's say you're averagely at a 6, 7 maybe. Like, no, 7 would be happy, but let's say you're at 6, just above neutral. And all of a sudden you take this vitamin, and now we're at 9 or 10 every day. We're just happy. But then we have to go to work, and we have to do all this, and we have to... Well, you see, would you... Because it's that movie Matrix. If you knew the Matrix, would you want to opt out?
No.
Who said no? I don't see the... Because I would feel probably... Who's me? Oyster? Yeah, because I would probably opt no as well. Because I think...
Anyone.
When you watch I watched The Matrix recently again. Incredible movie. So ahead of its time.
You just want that juicy steak, don't you? In The Matrix.
Oh, 100%. I would stay in The Matrix. I would be like, give me something like the guy says, and who wants to wake up to that misery? I just live in this bliss.
Yeah.
It's an incredible... I think that movie was so ahead of its time. The Matrix, honestly.
Even if we come to the real world is also not any less miserable anyway. So the same the Matrix, huh?
And what if this real world is just another illusion?
Yeah.
And
real world also is an illusion anyway.
It is, exactly. To some extent, it is an illusion. If you think, just check this out, that 99% of everything of matter is just empty space, because of the way atoms are kind of placed. It's actually mostly just empty vacuum. But that now, who would believe that? Now think about it.
It's a Matrix. So stay in the Matrix now. You'll be in the Matrix anyways. You only leave Matrix when you die. So at least.
Yeah,
well, Mufti, that reminds me of that dua by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He says like, Allahumma arini ashya'aka ma hiya. Like, it's such a profound dua, like, show me things as they really are. Like, what does that even mean? Like, there are so many layers to existence. It's the concept of the thing in and of itself. Like, do you know that concept?
Yeah, and it's of course, of Heidegger and of things of being in and of themselves. Heidegger's philosophy, and you see, it's an intricate balance, and it's a beautiful balance, but it's also, it has its challenges, because when you see things as they are, you're kind of disenchanted as well. But the rest of humanity isn't. So it's difficult as well. It has its challenge too, because other people, they haven't experienced what you've experienced. They don't see things as you see them. So you come to terms with that, and that is quite challenging as well, because you feel, because everybody's in that. It's like Socrates in the cave, the allegory of the cave. He's come out, and and he realizes it's all a game. You know that this, and it's a beautiful allegory, really one of a prophetic nature, if you think about it, and that they live in this cave. Those of I take it everybody's kind of come across it, but if you haven't, they're all in this cave, and they're kind of like bound in a way that they can only look forward, and there's a fire behind them, and there's a passageway in between where people carry these objects which cast a shadow onto the wall of the cave. So these people that are just trapped in the cave can only look forward at these shadows, and they've been like that for ages, that the shadows make shapes, that these people have become so good that they can guess the shapes, and they challenge it, and they've got like a assist hierarchy. Who is that person's the best at guessing, and that person's he's like at this class and status amongst themselves, who can guess the shapes and the sounds, and for some reason Socrates manages to break loose of his kind of noose, and he turns around and he realizes, oh, this is a fire, that's what it is. And then those were just shadows by these people walking, carrying some objects, and then he kind of comes out of the cave and he's blinded by the sunlight, and then he goes back in, and he thinks, I want to tell everyone that this is just, we're inside a cave, there's a much greater world outside, and you guys are just playing this game of these shadows and shapes. But when he's come back in to tell them, not only do they mock him, but because he's come back in from the light, the darkness, he's not as good as guessing the shapes anymore, because his eyes haven't adjusted. So they laugh at him, and I think that this allegory of what Plato tells about Socrates, the allegory of the cave, is so profound, because it is like, that is the challenge. Like when you become disenchanted, when you see things, arinil haqqa haqqa wa arinil batila batila, that you can't, or arinil ashya kama hi, that show me things as they are. People are not on that wavelength, and it must be so difficult, beginning with the prophetic struggle himself, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam struggle, because people around him just wouldn't have understood, and and then coming down to everyone today. But yeah, I think, wow, we've been going on quite a while. I know some of you in the UK probably thinking, I know Ibn Firnas is thinking that that AI algorithm's going to sack me tomorrow and replace me with for turning up late, right? But I know, alhamdulillah. I think I've really enjoyed this. I think we'll kind of start to wrap up. This was a first. I wasn't too sure how it's going to go, but I was kind of excited at the same time. I thought, look, the first one is always a bit in the air, you don't know, and but now that we've got some kind of an understanding, I suppose for the next one, people will be perhaps, it'll be even more, it'll be better, I guess. But is there anything you guys want to share, and then we can kind of maybe wrap this up?
I liked it.
All right.
Yeah, I guess this was the first date. It looks like our first date went well, so
all right,
now on to the
second date
engagement. Second date? Astaghfirullah.
Engagement straight away, Rami. Ya salam. Well, is there anything? If you guys want to, I don't know, say if there's anything, it doesn't have to be, but if you are feeling something, you can go for it, and then we'll start to wrap up.
Is it Mufti? Is it always the last, or is it like?
I was thinking that's an easy way to remember the last day of the month, and if there's ever an issue, we could have it maybe the penultimate one before or something. We could kind of gauge it, but I think it's just an easy way to say, just that's how I felt. I don't know how do you guys feel about that, Ibn Farnas?
Oh, I guess we'll be having book club in the new year. Huh? We're gonna be going at January 1st.
All right. No, we could have it. No, it's the last day. So
I know, but I'm saying that for you, it's gonna be 11 p.m. and then by that time we're gonna say New Year's in the middle of the book talk.
I have other plans, my friend.
No, I'm sure we can on certain occasions we can make arrangements and adjust the dates. It's not revelation, or it's not religion. We've got more flexibility than that.
Let's do it when we sight the new moon. Maybe
well, then we'll argue.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm really glad, alhamdulillah, that we had this discussion. So guys, that was epic. What we'll do is share your thoughts. If you're feeling certain other, I know we've got the channel for suggested books, and do share the quotes during the. So what we did have is we've got one of the channels saying highlights quotes, and as you're reading the book of the month, you can just kind of keep sharing. You can say, well, you know, this was a quote and I found this incredibly interesting, or whatever that you'd like to share. And there are other there's reading lists you can recommend people to read. There's, if you want people to download something, you want to share a link that they can download certain books that may help them, you can do that. And there is a channel for the next month's suggestion where you can just suggest books, and people have been doing, and I found that very helpful. And obviously you've got the general chit chat channel. So guys, it's been epic. I'm going to bring up for here the final page, which those of you who are watching this on YouTube and Facebook, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, get on with it, people. And as always, it's good to read. Get reading. You know, we are in a day and age where we have disengaged with reading, and it's a tragedy, because really we as human beings, and especially as Muslims, it is the first commandment of Islam to read, Iqra. And we have become a people so disenchanted by reading. And, you know, we don't read. You say to people, like I said, look, let's do the book club. And people, so many people want to flood it just for a kind of banter, chit-chat, you know, share jokes or fan club or this guy, you know. And this is about, like, I really want people to read. I want people to be mature in their ideas and grow up mentally and discuss things. And it's amazing. It's amazing. But guys, you've all been awesome. You've been amazing. Much love to all of you. Shukran for taking the time out. Likewise, viewers, take care of yourselves. Wassalamullahi alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh wa khuda hafiz.
Thank you for your time, Mufti.